grieving widow spends 16 hours on a feast they call dog food. All right, buckle up, because today we're diving into a story that's going to mess with your head. Imagine spending 16 grueling hours, 16 hours, pouring your heart and soul into preparing the most epic Christmas feast you could possibly dream of. You're doing it all, right? Every single dish, perfectly crafted, hoping against hope that this one meal, this one perfect spread, will finally make you feel like you belong again, like you're truly a part of your son's family. But then, the unthinkable happens. Your daughter-in-law, with a smirk you could practically hear, takes one look at your masterpiece, this incredible table of food, and announces to every single guest there that it looks like, wait for it, dog food. Just like that, in front of everyone. And in that moment, something inside you just snaps. You hit your absolute limit. She thought she'd humiliated you for the very last time, right? She thought she had won. But what she didn't know, what nobody knew, was that for the past 5 years, every single one of her cruel, condescending remarks, every petty insult, every whispered secret had been recorded. Every single one. And guess what? Margaret, our incredible protagonist, was about to serve her a feast of her own secrets. This isn't just about food, it's about a reckoning. Welcome back, everyone. Today we've got a real doozy for you. This isn't just a story, it's an absolute roller coaster of heartbreak, pure grit, and a revenge plot so shocking it is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about family. We're talking about the incredible Margaret, a woman who had already faced unimaginable loss, a grieving widow, who then endured years, and I mean years, of relentless ridicule and downright cruelty from her daughter-in-law, Bethany. You know that feeling when you're just pushed too far? When enough is finally, truly enough? Well, for Margaret, that moment came after a particularly soul-crushing Christmas dinner, the very one I just told you about, where Bethany openly, publicly, and maliciously mocked her cooking. That was the line. Margaret decided, then and there, that she was done. No more. So, seriously, grab your biggest bucket of popcorn, get super comfy, because this is one of those stories you truly, absolutely, unequivocally do not want to miss. It's got twists, turns, and a payoff that's going to leave you cheering. So, let's set the scene, all right? Margaret, from what we know, was always that warm, loving, quintessential mother. You know the type. Devoted, always there for her son, Daniel. Their bond was something truly special. But then, life throws you a curveball, doesn't it? Her beloved husband, Arthur, passed away. And just like that, Margaret found herself in this vast, echoing silence. Alone. It wasn't just the physical absence of Arthur. It was a profound loneliness that settled deep in her bones. The house, once filled with his booming laughter and the scent of his pipe tobacco, now felt like a museum of a life she used to live. She yearned for connection, for that sense of family, that warmth she'd always known. But instead, she felt this growing chasm, an increasing alienation from Daniel's new family, especially from Bethany. It's tough, right? When you're trying so hard to connect, to be a part of things, but you just feel like an outsider looking in. For 5 years, Margaret had tried. She'd bite her tongue when Bethany would make a backhanded compliment like, "Oh, Margaret, it's so quaint that you still hand wash your dishes. I could never." She'd smile through the subtle dismissals, the way Bethany would listen to Margaret's stories with a blank, impatient stare, before changing the subject back to herself. It was a classic case of covert narcissism, a slow, insidious campaign of emotional abuse designed to isolate and undermine. Margaret genuinely believed, deep in her heart, that if she could just host this grand, perfect Christmas feast, It would be her golden ticket, her chance, her opportunity to bridge that gap, to bond with her son and his family again. She envisioned laughter, warmth, shared memories, a return to the family she cherished. So, she poured everything she had into it. And I mean everything. The marathon began at 4 a.m, 16 hours in that kitchen. Think about that for a second. 16 hours. That's almost an entire day dedicated to one meal. First, the 20-pound turkey, a bird so magnificent it barely fit in the oven. She massaged it with butter and herbs, just as Arthur had taught her, his voice a warm memory in her ear. Don't be shy with the rosemary, Maggie. It's the secret to a happy Christmas. As the savory aroma began to fill the house, it was a ghost of Christmases past, a scent thick with love and loss. Then came the side dishes, each one a memory. The creamy mashed potatoes were for Daniel, his absolute favorite since he was a little boy. As she peeled each potato, she remembered him at age 6, sitting at the kitchen counter, helping, by making a glorious mess. The honey-glazed carrots were for her granddaughter, Lily, whose eyes would light up at the sweetness. The stuffing was Arthur's recipe, a complex and beautiful thing with chestnuts and sausage and sage, and every chop of the celery, every tear shed over the onions, was a prayer for belonging. She baked 3 kinds of bread from scratch, her hands dusted with flour, moving with a muscle memory that spanned decades. Finally, the desserts. A delicate, decadent chocolate silk pie that looked like it belonged in a 5-star restaurant, a gingerbread house for the kids, and a classic apple crumble, its cinnamon sugar topping catching the light. Every stir, every chop, every bake was infused with her hope, her love, and her desperate desire for acceptance. She pictured the family gathered around, their faces alight with joy, their bellies full, their hearts open. She envisioned a scene of pure, unadulterated belonging. But you know how sometimes reality just hits different? As the guests started to arrive, a chill began to creep into the air. It quickly became evident that the atmosphere was anything but welcoming. It wasn't the cozy, loving family gathering she had envisioned. It was tense, forced. Margaret, with a knot forming in her stomach, watched Bethany. Bethany, with her perfectly coiffed hair, her expensive designer dress, looked like she'd stepped right out of a glossy magazine. She surveyed the dining table, Margaret's 16-hour masterpiece, with an air of detached disdain, like a queen looking down on her peasants. The tension in the room was palpable, thickening with every passing second. And then, the moment of truth arrived. The family and guests took their seats. The table was groaning under the weight of the feast. The turkey was carved, steaming and perfect. Side dishes were passed. For a moment, a fragile, hopeful moment, it looked like Margaret's dream might come true. But Bethany, ever the performer, was just waiting for her stage. She dramatically took a tiny, almost theatrical taste of the magnificent roast. Her face scrunched up, not subtly, not politely, but with a full-blown, exaggerated grimace. And then, loud enough for everyone to hear, she declared, her voice dripping with condescension, "This looks like something I'd feed to the dogs. Can you believe that? Dog food!" The words hung in the air, a verbal grenade exploding in Margaret's meticulously prepared dining room. And what happened next? Laughter. Not a polite chuckle, but a ripple of uncomfortable, then full-blown mirthful laughter from some of the guests, egged on by Bethany's triumphant smirk. That sound, that awful, piercing sound, went straight through Margaret's heart, tearing right through her carefully constructed hopes and dreams. In that agonizing moment, it wasn't just the insult itself that stung. Oh no, that was just the final crushing blow. It was the culmination of years. Years of subtle belittlement, of petty comments, of condescending remarks, of being made to feel small and insignificant. This wasn't an isolated incident. This was the grand finale of a long, drawn-out campaign of emotional abuse. Research shows that public humiliation like this can cause intense feelings of shame, embarrassment, and anger, seriously harming a person's mental health and self-esteem. It's a public rejection of one's identity and social value. Margaret felt invisible, like her entire being, her efforts, her love, were utterly worthless. The room, which had just moments ago been filled with forced laughter, suddenly fell silent. A heavy, suffocating silence. Margaret's cheeks flushed a deep, mortifying red. She could feel the weight of judgment, of pity, of disdain from everyone around her. She looked at her son, Daniel, praying he would say something, anything. But he just sat there, looking down at his plate, a portrait of uncomfortable inaction. His silence was the sharpest cut of all. It was a moment etched into her memory forever. The precise moment she realized just how truly, utterly cruel Bethany could be. It was a wound that went deeper than any physical injury, a betrayal of the very idea of family. But here's the thing. Instead of crumbling, instead of just succumbing to that despair, Margaret made a decision that would change absolutely everything. This wasn't the end of her story. It was just the beginning of her fight back. The party finally, mercifully, ended. The last guest had awkwardly shuffled out, leaving Margaret alone in her dimly lit kitchen. The remnants of her once beautiful feast were scattered about. Half-eaten dishes, crumpled napkins, the ghostly echoes of Bethany's cruel laughter. Every single insult, every cutting remark, every single smirk replayed itself in her mind. A relentless, torturous loop. But amidst the crushing despair, something else began to stir within her, a flicker, a deep, burning sense of injustice. She remembered all those years, the casual put-downs disguised as jokes, the way Bethany would subtly undermine her in front of Daniel, a classic gaslighting technique designed to make Margaret question her own perceptions, the constant feeling of being less than. For far too long, Margaret had been the silent victim, trapped in her own home, in her own family. That night, as the house grew still and the moon cast long shadows, Margaret had a revelation, a bolt of lightning in the dark. She suddenly remembered something she had almost forgotten. The recordings. Oh, those recordings. She had kept them. Over the years, almost instinctively, like a survival mechanism, she had been documenting things. It started 5 years ago, after a particularly confusing argument where Bethany had twisted her words so completely that Margaret began to doubt her own memory. Shaken, she had started using the voice memo app on her phone during family visits, not to trap anyone, but simply to keep a grip on reality. It was a way to cope with the constant gaslighting and manipulation. But now, she realized, it was her own safety net, a treasure trove of irrefutable evidence against the very woman who had systematically made her life a living hell. With this newfound fierce determination, Margaret went to her study and opened her old laptop. She found the folder, labeled simply Family, and inside were dozens of audio files, each dated. She began to sift through the recordings. Each one was a stark, brutal reminder of the truth. Her truth. The truth that Bethany had tried so hard to distort and bury. There were Bethany's hushed whispers on the phone about her infidelities, the shocking details of her manipulative schemes regarding family finances, her constant, insatiable need for external validation, no matter who she had to step on to get it. It was all laid bare in those recordings, every ugly, selfish, calculating word. As she listened, not with despair this time, but with a growing sense of cold fury, a powerful wave of empowerment washed over her. This wasn't just about getting even. This wasn't some petty revenge. This was about reclaiming her dignity. It was about validating her own experiences, her own suffering. She was no longer just the grieving widow, the passive victim. No, she was Margaret. And she was a woman with a plan. A woman who was about to turn the tables in a way no one, especially Bethany, would ever see coming. This was her moment to rise above, to reclaim her narrative, and to show everyone the true face of the woman who had tormented her. But wait, there's more. As Margaret delved deeper into her late husband Arthur's affairs, not in a suspicious way, but just managing the estate, she stumbled upon something truly unexpected. Tucked away in the back of his massive oak desk, she found a manila envelope with her name on it, written in Arthur's familiar, strong script. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a letter and a legal document, a secret trust fund. Yes, a secret trust fund. Arthur, being the incredibly astute and loving man he was, had set it up. His letter read, in part, "My dearest Maggie, if you are reading this, it means I'm gone, but it also means you found the strength I always knew you had. I have watched you, my love, always putting others first. But I have also seen how some might take advantage of your kindness. This trust is my final gift to you, but it comes with a condition, a plea from your loving husband. The funds will only be fully accessible to you when you stand up for yourself and our family against any form of abuse, particularly from within. Fight for your peace, Maggie. Fight for your dignity. I will be with you, always." Tears streamed down Margaret's face, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of profound love and gratitude. It wasn't just financial security. It was a profound message of moral support, a validation of her worth, and a powerful endorsement of her decision to confront Bethany's manipulation. This trust fund wasn't just money. It was Arthur's enduring belief in her, a silent cheer from the afterlife, urging her to reclaim her power. It was a sign, a clear, unmistakable sign that she was on the right path. So, armed with undeniable proof and the incredible posthumous backing of her late husband, Margaret decided that it was high time to stop being the victim. It was time to turn the tables, not just a little, but completely upside down. With her resolve now as solid as concrete, Margaret meticulously, and I mean meticulously, planned her next move. This wasn't going to be some spontaneous outburst. This was a strategic, calculated strike. She decided she would host another family gathering, but this time, it wouldn't just be a feast for the stomach. Oh no. This was going to be a reckoning, a feast of truth. She sent out invitations to everyone, including Bethany, under the seemingly innocent pretense of celebrating the new year. It was all part of the grand plan. This time, she was absolutely determined that the dinner would be about one thing and one thing only: the unvarnished, undeniable truth. On the evening of the gathering, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Not the usual festive kind, but something different. Guests arrived, a mix of family members and close friends, all expecting a typical New Year's celebration. Margaret greeted them at the door, a warm, almost serene smile on her face. But beneath that calm exterior, her heart was a whirlwind of emotions, a mix of nerves, righteous anger, and an unwavering determination. The table, once again, was set beautifully. Every detail was perfect, featuring dishes that would have put any gourmet restaurant to shame. The irony wasn't lost on Margaret. She was serving a spectacular meal, but her true dish, the main course, was the one that would finally serve justice. As the meal progressed, a facade of polite conversation and laughter echoed through the hall. Margaret engaged in light chatter, her voice steady, her composure unshakable, even as her heart raced a mile a minute. She waited. She watched. She let the tension slowly build. She knew exactly when the moment was right. Then, with a quiet strength that commanded immediate attention, she stood up. She tapped her glass gently with a fork. The gentle clinking of silverware slowly faded into silence. Every eye in the room turned to her. You could feel the collective anticipation. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she began, her voice clear and surprisingly steady, cutting through the silence. "It truly means a lot to me that you're all here." She paused, letting her words sink in, letting the silence deepen. "But before we dig in any further, I feel it's incredibly important to share some truths. Some things that have been hidden for far too long." Another pause, her gaze sweeping across the faces in the room, finally resting on Bethany, whose perfect smile had now started to falter. "You see, I've been documenting our family's conversations for years, and tonight, it's time for some revelations." The room fell absolutely silent. You could hear a pin drop. Gasps rippled through the guests. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats, exchanging bewildered glances. Bethany's face, which had been pale just moments ago, now looked positively ashen. Margaret, with a calm, deliberate movement, reached into her purse and retrieved a small, unassuming voice recorder. She pressed play, and the first sound that filled the stunned silence was Bethany's voice, clear as day. "Honestly, can you believe she wore that? It's like she's not even trying." The voice belonged to Bethany, from a recording made last Easter, mocking Aunt Carol's dress. Aunt Carol gasped, her hand flying to her chest. The gasps were louder, more shocked, as the recordings played one after another. Next came a recording of Bethany talking to a friend on the phone. "David's so proud of his little promotion. Bless his heart. He doesn't realize he's just a glorified paper pusher." Uncle David's face turned crimson. The guests shifted, squirmed, some openly staring at Bethany in disbelief. Each revelation was more shocking, more damning than the last. Bethany's secret complaints about Cousin Sarah's kids being unruly brats. The carefully constructed facade of family harmony was shattering into a million pieces right before their eyes. Bethany, now visibly shaking, tried to interject, her voice a desperate, panicked whisper. "Margaret, what are you doing? This is out of context. You're twisting things." She tried to claim Margaret was taking things completely out of context, that it was all a misunderstanding. But the mounting, irrefutable evidence, playing directly from Margaret's recorder, left absolutely no room for denial. No room for excuses. The carefully crafted image she had built over years, the one where she was the perfect, charming daughter-in-law, crumbled into dust as her secrets, her true, ugly character, spilled into the open for everyone to hear. Daniel, her own husband, sat there, his face a mask of utter bewilderment and dawning horror. But believe it or not, that wasn't even the worst of it. Oh no. Margaret had one final devastating piece of evidence. A recording so damning, so utterly destructive, that it would completely shatter Bethany's world, forever. Margaret paused the recorder, her eyes locking with Bethany's. "And here's something you might find particularly interesting, Bethany," she said, her voice calm, almost eerily so, yet filled with an undeniable steel. She pressed play one last time, and what came next was a bombshell. The recording revealed a conversation between Bethany and her supposed best friend. It laid out Bethany's intricate, manipulative plans to control Daniel, to manage his relationship with his mother, to isolate him, and, most shockingly, her elaborate schemes to gain complete control over his inheritance. Once Margaret's out of the picture, and Daniel's money is legally our money, Bethany's voice cooed from the recorder, we can finally live the life we deserve. He's so easy to handle, he'll never even see it coming. She wasn't just cruel, she was a calculated predator. The reactions in the room were explosive. Daniel, who had been sitting in stunned silence, completely oblivious to these deep manipulations, finally broke. He stood up, his chair scraping loudly across the floor, his face a mixture of shock, betrayal, and pure, unadulterated rage. He struggled to process the magnitude of the deceit, the betrayal from the woman he had married. The guests murmured, some rising from the table in sheer disbelief, others rallying around Margaret, offering comfort and support. The New Year's feast had indeed become a reckoning. In the chaotic aftermath, Bethany's carefully crafted image, her entire social standing, was utterly shattered. The fallout was swift and brutal. Daniel, reeling from the betrayal, confronted her. Their marriage, already hanging by a thread, now snapped. The trust was gone, irrevocably broken. As for Margaret, a wave of profound relief washed over her. It wasn't a triumphant, vengeful feeling, but a deep, cleansing sense of peace. She had transformed from a silent victim into a woman who stood her ground, reclaimed her voice, and, most importantly, reclaimed her dignity. In the weeks that followed, Bethany faced the very real, very severe consequences of her actions. And this is where it gets even crazier. Remember Arthur's secret trust fund? The one with the condition about standing up to abuse? Well, the legal battle escalated. Bethany, in a desperate attempt to salvage her reputation, issued a cease and desist order against Margaret, threatening legal action for defamation. But Margaret, now emboldened and fully supported by Arthur's legacy, didn't back down. Instead, she filed a countersuit. Aided by a top-tier lawyer funded by Arthur's trust, she alleged a multi-year pattern of harassment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and elder abuse. The legal claim for emotional distress was strong, as Bethany's conduct was clearly extreme and outrageous, causing severe documented harm. Margaret had the recordings, the evidence, and the unwavering resolve. The legal dimension took an even more shocking turn. In a desperate, last-ditch effort to discredit Margaret during a deposition, Bethany made a wild accusation. She claimed Arthur, Margaret's late husband, had been laundering money. She presented convoluted details of financial transactions she'd gleaned over the years, attempting to paint Arthur as a criminal. Can you believe the audacity? But Margaret, with a knowing smile, revealed the ultimate truth. Arthur wasn't laundering money. He had actually been an FBI consultant, working undercover to combat financial crime. This blew everyone away. The detailed knowledge Bethany had of criminal activities, which she had so carelessly revealed in her attempt to frame Arthur, inadvertently implicated her in ongoing FBI investigations for elder abuse and financial fraud. It was a spectacular, self-inflicted wound. Arthur, even posthumously, had provided the ultimate protection and justice. Bethany's eventual conviction for fraud and elder abuse was a stark testament to the serious consequences of her actions. Daniel, now fully aware of the extent of her manipulation and cruelty, gained full custody of their children, ensuring they were removed from Bethany's toxic influence. The legal battle highlighted the critical importance of evidence, legal advocacy, and the justice system's role in protecting vulnerable family members from abuse and fraud. Margaret's bravery didn't just expose Bethany's cruelty, it led to an entirely new, incredibly fulfilling chapter in her life. Inspired by her incredibly painful experience, she went on to found a foundation using the funds from Arthur's trust. This isn't just any foundation. It's dedicated to helping elderly people recognize and combat financial and emotional abuse, turning her personal pain into a powerful, meaningful purpose. She became an advocate, a voice for those who felt unheard, just like she once did. Margaret's story is an incredible testament to empowerment and resilience. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes, the quietest among us, the ones who seem most vulnerable, can rise up with unimaginable strength and reclaim their power. If you've ever felt belittled, humiliated, or made to feel small, remember Margaret. Remember her courage. You absolutely have the power to rise above, to expose the truth, and to find your own incredible victory. All right, if you were as gripped by Margaret's incredible story as I was, you know what to do. Don't forget to smash that like button. Seriously, give it a good click. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more mind-blowing tales of courage, resilience, and, let's be honest, some epic revenge. And hey, if you've got a story of your own, something that resonates with Margaret's journey, or just something wild you want to share, drop it in the comments below. We absolutely love hearing from you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember this: standing up for yourself, for what's right, can lead to the most unexpected and often the most rewarding victories you could ever imagine. Until next time, stay strong, stay vigilant, and never underestimate the power of one person to change everything.